Salam alaikum alaikum salam estada matamba. Today we're doing a video about the Nkisi, all right? We'll go into the differences between the Congo Nkisis and the Afro-Cuban. Very much like what people refer to in Ganga, Kindembo, Prenda, Un Fundamento, which is very much the same thing, but within different aspects. But it's very much the same thing. The word Nkisi means medicine. Within the Congo, this is what the Nkisi, most Nkisis look like. And these are matekas, these are statue forms of Nkisi. Because within the Congo, an Nkisi can be made from very different shapes and sizes, from bags to sacks to shells to for whatever purpose. But this is an Nkisi from the Congo. And it's built within a specific purpose to help out the community. This is also an Nkisi, right, that we will see in Cuba, that we will see very much in Palo. They refer to this in Nganga, a fundamento, a prenda, but it is an Nkisi, right? It just has a different shape. It's built in a pot instead of a statue, and that's why the rituals will change and the tradition and culture around it will change. This is an Nkisi also. This is an Nkisi koso. We call this within the Afro-Cuban or Nkisi Malongo, we call this kinikinis. But it's an Nkisi Congo, Nkisi koso within the Congo. This is another Nkisi, right? But we refer to this as an Nganga, Fundamento, Prenda. And they're all Nkisis, but they're in different ways of construction, different purposes. One has another different culture than the one that from the Congo. The rituals will be different, the construction will be different, but essentially they're all Nkisis. So let's go ahead and get into the Nkisi within the Congo. Nkisi within the Congo tradition were meticulously crafted with distinct purpose aimed at addressing specific challenges or issues. Each Nkisi served as a spiritual tool, embodying the unique intentions of its creator to provide solutions, protections, or healing in various aspects of life. So those statues within the Congo were created for specific purposes, to address specific themes, and the whole community was involved, and those Nganga and Nkisi Malongo, those priests were involved to fix those problems with those specific Nkisis. Not much like the way we do in the Afro-Cuban spectrum, where the Nkisi that we build, that we call Fundamento Prenda Nganga, is built for all types of problems, is well-rounded, etc., right? That spirit is there. He's well-rounded within any of the abilities, but he has a specific force. And we'll get into that. But we have to differentiate that, right? Does the Nkisi from the Congo have an Mfumbe? Well, we refer to Mfumbe, right? To be honest, we don't know. But all Nkisis must have an Mfumbe. And I'm referring to an Mfumbe as a spirit. If it's represented by a human skull, human remains, or rock, and other things, right? Dirt from cemetery, this, that, whatever ritual it is to encapsulate them inside the parcel, the sacred container, the futu. That is up to those Ngangas and the way that they did it. Because if they grab a little piece of that human remain and put it in there and mix it with dirt, you will never know what's in there. So the anthropologists or the historians that go searching and looking for these things and open up that they have in Nkisis and museum will never know what's in there. Because that's for initiation rites only. Maybe they don't tell them the full secrets, etc. So we don't know that, right? But within Palo, you hear everybody saying, oh, human remains, this, and that. And this is why I'm making this video. At the end of the day, this picture here is from the late 1800s, early 1900s within the Congo. And you can clearly see that they are working, right, with criumbas, right? The way that what we call in Cuba a criumba. And those are his Nkisis, and those are built for specific purposes. Um, at the end of the day, do they need that? I don't think so, because I can't go too much in depth within these processes, because they're for initiation rites only. I'm doing this video to educate, for you guys to truly understand what is an Nkisi. If it's in that shape, if it's in a box, if it's in a sack, if it's in a little statue, if it's in a shell, if it's whatever within the Congo, it's an Nkisi. And the bilongo that goes in it is what activates its purpose. And most of the time, it has a spirit in there. Physically or through ritual, they invoke it and introduce that into it, which gives it life, right? Now, why are there so many of them? You have to understand that this is part of their culture, and each statue and each Nkisi is built for a specific purpose. It's just not art. It had to do with spirituality. The Bakongos were very spiritual. They lived alongside the spirits because they understood that. All right. So you'll see many, many different types of Nkisi. Big, small, the size don't matter. But at the end of the day, there was a spirit. If it was activated, there was a spirit inside of it. And they had all these for different purposes. One Nkisi was for this, one Nkisi's for that, one Nkisi's for this, etc., etc. This Nkisi will handle these issues. This other Nkisi was for medicine. This one was to hunt down. This is for this. This is for that. They carved them or they made them for specific purposes. Now, the Nkisi within Cuba, all right, let's get into that one. In Cuba, Nkisis are created to tackle various challenges, each specifically tailored to harness the energy of a particular natural force, while these sacred containers serve essential functions. They differ notably from those in the Congo, reflecting the unique cultural and spiritual traditions of the Cuban continent. So, does the Nkisi within Cuba differ from the Nkisi in the Congo? Yes, to an extent, right? Because it has culture, names and rituals and all of that became in Cuba. It was established in Cuba during the slave trade and after the slave trade, and it's still going on to the day, right? But fundamentally still an Nkisi. All of these are Nkisis. Those pots, kettles, clay pots, all of that, iron cauldrons are Nkisis. Now, what makes up an Nkisi? What's the big thing? I can't go so much into that, but I will elaborate one thing for practitioners. We must understand that these Nkisis, or what we refer in Cuba as Mpungu, like Siete Rayos, Centella, Sarabanda, Lucero, Kalunga, Cholawenge, Gurufinda, these Mpungus are not deities. We cannot see them as deities, because fundamentally what these things are is a specialized Mfumbe, right? And what I mean by Mfumbe, it's a specialized spirit, right? No siete rayo. If I have an Insasi siete rayo and this person has an Insasi siete rayo, it is not the same siete rayo, right? Only priests will know this, but I'm giving this little bit out so people can understand. It has the same force. That spirit has the force of lightning and thunder and fire. Another priest has that Insasi, and he has the same force, but the spirit within it is not the same. It's kind of like having two dentists. They're two different people, but they're both dentists. They both have the same profession. Two centella, if you have my centella mangasaya, is not the same centella that any other priest has. It can have the same force of nature, which has to do with the winds and the storms and hurricanes and tornadoes and stuff like that. That spirit is there, is specialized within that, but it is not the same. And this is more for priests, but I make this video to educate, for people to understand that Sarabanda, that Centella, that siete rayo, are not deities. Even though, obviously nowadays we synchronize these things. Most people are practicing more in synchronized palo within La Ocha and that is fine because that has to do with culture. But they're very separate. All these things were separate at one time. And all Nkisi must have a spirit. You can buy an Nkisi, and I've gone to botanicas, and I've seen them in flea markets, and I've seen them online, right? You can obtain an Nkisi Nkondi or an Nkisi Mateke, right? A statue form of an Nkisi with nails or whatever, but it can be hollow. There's no spirit in there. And you think that you have a spirit in there, and there isn't. Only a priest knows the right rituals and knows how to deal and interact to see if there's one there, and if it wants to make agreements, and if it wants to still be there, and all of that. This stuff is very serious. But we must understand that a fundamento, a prenda, a quindembo, what we call in Cuba, an nganga is fundamentally an Nkisi. What differs from the Nkisi and the Bakongo is that the ones that we have in Cuba within the practice of Nkisi Malongo or Palo Monte, Palo Mayumbe, in this practice, or Palo in general, how people say, is that it's specialized within a force, but its purpose is to attack all issues that the priest or the patient can have. It's a generalized, it has more amplitude to reach all these different scenarios. Now, why would we have those different types? Why would we have a centella? Why would we have a setejayo? Most linajes have seven primary Nkisis. And these seven Nkisis, which are Lucero, Siete Rayo, Centella, Sarabanda, Coayende, Kalunga, and Cholawenge. I know Gurufinda is missing. That's a specialized Nkisi. That many paleros have that. Many Nganga, Nkisi, Malongo, or Tata, Ngangas, or Yaya Ngangas have that Gurufinda. Well, mostly the men. Some lineages might give it to the women. I don't get involved in that. Each lineage has their own way of doing things. Temblatiejas is missing there, right? Brazo Fuerte, Watariamba, because those are more specialized. But you'll see that most people will be within these seven, or they'll have these seven engandos, right? Primary engandos, that they'll attack all issues within life, all the issues and problems. Like a Coayende, the spirit is in there specialized within the health aspect. And this has to go, it goes a little bit more in depth because you have to have your primary Nkisi, what's your Nsila Ongo, and the other ones help out those primary Nkisis that you have, the primary one. Like if I have Centella, is able to do it all. With one, you can do many things, but if you start to work the tradition a lot, and have many patients, you just don't do it for yourself, then you have a lot of patients that come with sickness, problems within sickness, then you might build an Nkisi, like Coayende, which he will take off the weight from that centella, etc., etc. You started having a lot of patients that are coming with court issues and those problems, and you'll build a Sarabanda or specialize very much more well, kind of like a Watariamba and stuff like that, etc., etc., etc. But one Nkisi should be able to handle all these problems for the priest in its life. We just have those seven because with those seven spirits that you have, you can attack all issues in life, resolve them with those seven. They're specialized within these specific forces. Within an Nkisi, are there other forces? Yes. But there's a particular force. Kind of like, I'll go into a little bit about Centella. I have a spirit, right, that's in there. And to make it Centella, we introduce, right, the bilongo, right? All the bilongo that you need in there. The dirt, this, that, all that stuff. But a particular force, which has to do with the winds, right? Like a hurricane, a tornado, dust devil, sandstorms. And that's what makes that spirit inside that Nkisi Centella. You get me? Hopefully, you guys are able to understand that. Do you have to use Human remains, not necessarily. Um, and I'm pretty sure within the Congo, they don't have to. Did some do it? I'm pretty sure they did. But for sure, you must have a spirit, right? And I have a good friend of mine that he's initiated within the Bakinda tradition, and he's there within initiating into a traditional way of the Congo practice, and he uses spirits also, just differently than the way we use them in Palo. But fundamentally, you must have a spirit inside the parcel, inside the futu, to activate that stuff. It's just a specialized spirit. That's what we call to an Mfumbe. And then when we say Mfumbe, it's a spirit that is materialized. You get me? It's a Mfumbe that has agreements with a priest and is specialized, right? It has agreements. And Fumbi or Ndundu is a ghost. Within, the Bakongo, they call those Nkuyu, right? They're Bagando, they're still attached to the materialistic realm, and they'll use those to construct Nkisis, because they're there. Now, how these stuff work within the spiritual realm, I can't get so much in depth, but the main reason is that, right? The Bakongo, you built their Nkisis to the needs. The Palo, they literally constructed their Nkisis to be general, to be able to attack all things. And a little bit of synchronization happened, right? Synchronization happened, which is fine. Most people that I know don't practice fully in synchronization, right? Within La Ocha and Ifa. But to an extent, that stuff kind of did a little bit. To sum everything up, and what I'm trying to emphasize is that the Impungos or the Nkisis engan a fundamento que indembo la prenda, right, that we say in Sasi, Siete Rayos, Arawanda, Centella, those are not deities. You must seem as specialized Mfumbe, specialized spirits. That's what they truly are. Hopefully you guys can grasp that. Hopefully that I was able to transmit the correct idea through this video. Stay tuned. I have a book coming out called Through the Eyes of a Spirit and Through the Eyes of a Priest, which will go a little bit more in depth within these topics. Obviously, initiation rites, and I can't speak so much in depth how these things go into work and the workings of all this stuff. But stay tuned, right? Please like, share, subscribe, leave comments. And don't be afraid to reach out and leave those comments down there and ask any doubts that you have. There's many great priests out here that know what they're doing. Be very careful because these things are serious. You're messing with spirits that are well materialized, and you must understand how these things function. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with Nsinga Dikana Ninga Katubukako. Always uphold our traditions by making the right decisions for our tradition. Salam alaikum alaikum salam. Thank you guys for your time.